Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of what do we call this now again? Oh, yeah, Alpha's Alpha. In this episode, we'll be talking longevity. Now, longevity in the sense of crypto, actually. So, for this episode, I'll be asking OX Various from Monstro all the hard questions about navigating the storm of an extensive bear market and massive volatility. We'll explore how you sustain a project, a community, and hope itself. I mean, crypto and hope here. Is it by meticulous design or a healthy dose of stubbornness? I think Various is quite stubborn, so maybe it's mostly that. And then, of course, I'm going to ask Various to share all of his, invaluable experience on managing team and investor expectations, the tough calls on when to drop an unsuccessful project, and the strategy behind what to offer next. Now, Various told me that it's only been like 6 days in crypto, so I'm not sure how much you'll be able to offer there, but 6 days is quite the experience. I think that's more than long enough. And of course, we're going to tap into his wealth of knowledge for crucial lessons learned and actionable advice for anyone in the tech and crypto space. So it's like crypto is a pretty hard and techy world. So we kind of have to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of how do you actually survive in this incredibly complex and often jargon-filled world of crypto tech. I mean, most people that come into crypto are very much techy, have a kind of techy background. Okay, maybe not anymore, because it's like people finding it easier and easier to get into crypto, but those are all of the things that we'll get to ask Mr. Various. I struggle with saying like OX Various. It's like that's tough. My poor vocals don't like that. But there's the title below: DeFi-ance, Our Revenge is to Live Forever on Chain. And of course, I don't come up with the names around you. I'm terrible at that. If I was coming up, I probably would have been something like longevity is the greatest thing on the planet. It's, terrible. I know I have terrible naming scheme, but that's why we have Miss Smiley. Hello, Smiley. It's good to see you around. Smiley is the one that always comes up with these titles, and she's honestly impeccable at it. So it's like I can't take any credit for that. And good to see you, Serenity. We are definitely getting the party started tonight. Oh, Smiley is asking, can't wait to see V in his hoodie. Oh, so I suppose we'll have to introduce who V is, because maybe we have a few people that aren't aware of who V is. Well, it's just OX Various, short thing. See, we have quite the conversation going on over there. With one with cut-off sleeve, it's really cool, makes him look all muscly. Oh, interesting. Do I look muscly? Yeah. Terrible. Serenity. Oh, wait. No questions yet. Where's the monsters at? Monsters because Monstro. I love peanut butter. I'm not sure where that came out of, but we'll go with it. OX Various says hi, and is that a real dog? Oh, was it a reference to him? No, unfortunately, he's not real. He's a what do we call this? A stuffed animal? No, he's not actually an animal that was stuffed. Is that word? Oh, Philip, you see what you did? It wasn't me. That wasn't me. No, hoodie. Oh, hi BTK. Good to see you, sir. Okay, now enough going on tangents. Let us bring Mr. Various up. Good evening or afternoon. Wait, yeah, it's afternoon for you. Good afternoon, Mr.
Afternoon here, yes. Well, I suppose nighttime is still afternoon, right? Technically.
Yeah.
But
I think
hello,
in crypto it's
everyone.
always morning, so there's that.
Oh, speaking of dogs, mine just strolled into the room. So mine is actually real. But
I have a real dog too. We might hear
he
him
heard
sometime
he
during the
heard the
stream.
talking and he came to join us. So let me lift him up and see if he wants to say hi. Hold on.
Hello, Mr. Bullseye. I knew it. I remembered his name. Woo! Look at him. Oh, he does not look happy. He does not look happy to be floating. Oh,
All right.
did you see what Beta told you now? How do you like it? It's an
We can,
orange. What is that called?
yeah, so
Vest?
this is just a $5 sleeveless whatever shirt. It's not a hoodie and not a muscle shirt. It is a it's hot out, and this was the closest thing on the floor.
You know, that's just how guys dress. Like I was also like, it's cold for me. It's like freezing, so I got out of all of my warm stuff to sit here, looking pretty. But I was like, I looked at my pile of clothes. I was like, purple thing. You're the closest. I'm going to take you. Let's go. And then I was like, wait,
So
we got.
I think first Smiley wants you to tell us, Alpha, why we should stay.
Why should you stay?
Why should all of us stay here?
Hopefully for a very insightful conversation, I
If you want
assume.
an insultful conversation, that's a little different. But
I'm sorry, my tongue does these twisting things. An insightful conversation. There we go. How's that? I think
it is
that's a
fine.
good reason to stay. I'm not sure what you're confirming or denying, so I'm just gonna skip. V is legit one of the best possible. Okay, I think I'm getting detracted.
Thank you, Smiley, but I also don't consider myself a boss because I don't consider you guys on the team as employees. It's not, a normal structure. Right now, we're still in the stage where it's very much appreciated that Alpha, Smiley, and whoever else helps us. Everyone's kind of doing it because of their own free will. It sounds a little odd to say, but yeah,
Whoa.
everyone's doing it because they want to help, they like what we're building, and we appreciate that. And it's something where you only get rewarded, here and there, because we try to keep our expenses very low, which is one of the points that we'll get into for how you survive through bear markets.
Yeah, that's also quite one of the questions. But that is yeah. It's been about a year that we've been sticking around. Also, it does sound odd when you say, "Oh, they own free will," because it's like, whoa, they might be chained up in the basement somewhere, being whooped every day to do work.
Well, you guys have been wondering where Gabo is, right?
Hopefully, he's being very productive, down in the basement. I hope so. If
Well,
not,
when he doesn't get fed, and then it kind of snowballs, and then we're left with an incident.
oh no. Okay.
All right. So shall we jump into some of the topics you want to discuss?
I think we will. But before that, I know Smiley used to do this, and I'm kind of stealing it from her. We're going to do the word association game that she absolutely loves doing. So I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Pretty sure I am. I'm pretty sure I remember it from Monstro Mondays with some guests.
Yeah. Okay. So just to get everyone up to speed, word association game is where I take a few random words and then I'll throw it out at various or whoever is the guest, and they have to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. So today we have, it's also very rapid fire usually. So ocean.
My mind is not rapid fire today, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully you can come up with some interesting responses. Now, okay, the first word is ocean.
Water.
Okay. Okay, whisper.
Quiet.
This is not going well. Key.
You're not giving me good words.
Okay, mint. How's that? That's good.
Men?
Mint. M-I-N-T.
Oh, mint. Like a flavor? Tea?
Okay, that's good. Rust.
Did you say rats?
Rust. R-U-S-T. I need to speak louder.
I think of like old cars.
I would have said programming language, actually.
Yeah, but see, I know Rust is a programming language, but that's not the first thing that would pop in mind if someone just randomly says Rust.
Very different-minded, evidently. Okay, last one will do. Bridge.
See, again, I feel like we should have said I have to answer the first Web3 thing that comes to mind, because all I'm going to say is like a bridge connecting two pieces of land.
Well, on the bright side, at least our word association has made someone laugh. Smiley seems to be having the time of her life over there. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'm clearly not very good at this word association stuff. Now, I think we can finally get into the nitty-gritty things. So I think we'll go with probably one of the most loaded questions. How do you sustain a project, the community of the project, and hope during an extensive bear market? Because that's what we've been dealing with for a while, and especially when there is massive market volatility.
Well, for the community part, it's extremely difficult because it depends on the type of community you are. If you're, for example, if you have a token and there's a lot of activity, a lot of active people, it would be much easier than, for example, a passive income community, where most times people only talk if they're not getting paid. And that's not the case, for example, in Monstro. So it is very quiet. It's more quiet than I would like, but it's also understandable because a lot of the people we notice, they're still there, right? They're still paying attention. If we put out an important announcement or ask for a vote or do something, we still see over 100, let's say, people that are immediately answering that. But in chat, some people, first of all, chatting is not their thing. If they're a passive investor, they might just want to put money somewhere and see it make money. They don't really care to hang out and do other things. So it's very different. If you had a gaming community, there's a lot more to talk about, right? You talk about what's going on in the game or new updates or bug fixes or all kinds of things. So yeah, I think we're one of the more difficult niches to sustain an active community. But we do know that when we release things and we see the reactions immediately, and just from the fact I talk with a lot of our community, in DMs and one-on-one, we know they're all there. We know they're paying attention for the most part. So that's good. And yeah, some people come by and it might be a turnoff, right? So that's another difficulty. If someone new comes by, they don't see much activity. They might just wander off and be like, oh, this place is dead, and never look deeper. And that's unfortunate, but we're not going to employ, fake chatters or do anything like that. Even if we have game nights, we've seen in the past, it tires out, it trails off very quickly. The only sustainable way is you need ongoing marketing that's attracting new blood to help some of that churn. And when, people are busy or not active, you have new people coming in who are busy and active. And you constantly would need that, which in our case, we'll get to that point too, I'm sure, but we do very, very limited marketing. And there's long stretches at a time where we don't market anything because, we have reasons we don't feel it be impactful. And we want to conserve our budgets and whatnot. So yeah, in our case, keeping the community alive is rather difficult. We try to be, around, answer people quickly, try to talk whenever there's a little bit going on and keep it rolling for a little bit, but it's not a very chatty type of niche we're in. And I do think when we launch our token and we launch a few of our other products that are in the roadmap, for example, like Last Monster Standing, and there'll be a lot more to talk about, because the best example is, right before we launched DGens last year, it was also very quiet. There wasn't too much going on. And when we launched DGens, suddenly there was a flood of new people, and both old and new people reactivated, right? And they're chatty and they're asking all kinds of questions, and they're making up things about pounding, 4X buttons, and there's just more for them to do. When you're just sitting there and you're receiving money and there's nothing to do essentially, and you're being paid, yeah, it makes for a lack of engagement, I guess.
It does. It definitely does. Last Monster Standing does sound interesting.
So Smiley, it's in our wiki. We have a little blurb on it. I know it doesn't reveal much, but it's been in there since we updated it now. And I like to not announce those things just to see who's reading the wiki and who reads the new one when we let them know, like we overhauled it, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. But there's a few things in there, barely anybody noticed or mentioned. But some of them are pretty cool, pretty intriguing upcoming items.
Various likes to release all the alpha, like in a very interesting way. As basically, what do we call those? Easter eggs.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, the community is very quiet. So it's like, even though they basically right in front of you, they're just like they're gonna skim over it and be like, oh, that looks cool. Okay, anyway.
I do suspect when we have our token and we're spending money on marketing again, we'll see a little more activity, or at least I would hope so. And with the token, it's more important too, but you also get built-in activity. People are always going to be, whether good or bad, they're going to be commenting on the price, right, and the market more, and and things that affect it immediately. So definitely I expect an uptick, but for now, we're happy for those who are, with us, and those who do chat. It's nice to see, but I guess I have to hang out, when I want to see chatting, I usually have to hang out in the alien base Discord, because theirs is at least always busy. Unlike all the other servers I'm in, like, for the most part, most of them are really dead. So.
Okay, so how do you manage expectations for that token launch? That's a good question. Actually, one of the questions I already have, but might as well bring that up.
I guess it depends, as far as,
Yes.
a lot of people expect a lot of different things. So you have the Lazarus Pit people who still don't understand that there's vesting, for example, and think that they're going to be able to sell everything on day one and be immediately repaid all the money they lost that we didn't lose for them, that the former Optimus project did. So there's those expectations. There's other people who are like, well, I'm going to put in X amount. Do you think I can 10x it in the first day? And I'm like, I would not recommend that's going to happen. If that's your expectation, it's possible. It's very possible. If we have a pre-sale that sells out well and the marketing channels hit and people like the concept, I mean, it's very possible a 10x on a first day of a token is not hard. Sustaining that pump would be much more difficult. But yeah, I think most people that are with us, their expectation is just, will it make me money over time, because they're already passive income people. For them, I think we're going to meet their expectation and exceed it. But for anyone who's just looking for unrealistic pumps, maybe we're not building it that way, but we're also not saying it can't happen, because it's still going to be launching at, for example, a 3.8 million market cap or whatever it is. So there's obviously, if it's full on alt season, which is the idea, we've seen tokens take off in a day, to 100 million, 200 million rather easily. So I would say don't expect it, but if it happens, I would not be completely like, oh, this is completely out of the blue, because we want to have all the conditions hitting, right? So.
Okay, so now I have a question based on all of that information. Now, obviously, with marketing, especially for tokens, or anything in crypto, really, anything if you want hype, you got to market, right? So
unfortunately,
I would think, like, then, let's say you stop marketing. Does that then kind of immediately kill off a community, in essence? Especially for tokens, since tokens are kind of very hype driven, especially token communities. I mean, we've seen a huge amount of token communities, a huge amount of tokens launch. So, like, once that marketing kind of ends, does it kind of kill off the community at that point? Does that then take away that longevity of what it could have been had they maybe done things slightly different?
So in
Or
our
maybe
case,
continued?
yeah, in our case, the fact we're going to be supporting it with constant buy pressure through external yield generation, that's one part that's going to help, right? The best marketing is obviously, if people see it, a healthy chart and a maintainable chart is the best marketing you can have for a token.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it's strong enough that organically people will pick up and do update videos and do all these things where you're not actually paying them for it. Like, tons of videos out there from content creators. It's not the token projects that are paying them. It's they want to have content, and they want to be the ones saying, hey, I think this token's great. And they can come back in 10 months and say, look, if you listen to me, you would have 20x. So yes, and word of mouth, I just saw flashing, is a great way, especially that's how we've done most things to date. But the other part of it is there's other avenues where we can attract attention from people who look at different things, like, let's say, DeFi Llama and things like that. Because, for example, I can announce we're going to have a farm on Alien Base. And this farm, we're going to give it attractive emissions that last over, let's say, 36 months, right? And for that 36 months, if we're a featured farm with a better APR than most of the other pools, it's going to attract money and buyers, and that's going to attract more attention. And that's going to snowball onto all the places that list, hey, what pools are doing well right now, right? There's a bunch of tools for this. And all that stuff is kind of built in and automated and just snowballs. So there's ways like that where we're not having to spend every day on ongoing marketing. So that price appreciation, word of mouth, I think all those things, hopefully organic, social influencers and YouTubers picking it up. All that combined should mean we don't have to spend every day. But there's absolutely people, if they see a burst of ads and then they don't see them, even in traditional stuff, right? Like people ask, why does Coca-Cola still put billboards on the highway? Everyone knows if they like Coke or Pepsi, right?
Yeah.
And the reason is what I read a long time ago was that the moment they don't, it's like a trap. They've trapped themselves into spending and branding a certain amount. If they don't, then people suddenly question, are they in trouble? Why did they stop? What's going on?
Mm.
And I think it applies to projects as well. So it is a bit of a slippery slope that if you start spending a lot on marketing and then you slow down or stop, people always assume the worst. They assume something's going wrong, you're broke, your project's doing bad. And the fact is, no, maybe you were marketing only specific launches, specific campaigns. You know, if we release a new product and we, let's say, market it for a week and then we slow down or stop, it's because we want people to know about the new product. We don't want to spend every cent we have just pushing something forever. So I think that's how I would answer you.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, Smiley's just dropping all the questions over here. Let's see. So what indicators are you looking for in order to start the marketing and proceed forward? Oh, I suppose that's to do with the token, with the Monstro token launch.
So that one, we've been essentially waiting for two things. One is, everyone knows our largest investment by far, and the bulk of our funds are in Alien Base. We'd like to see it hit a certain price point. We can sell a little bit off that. That's our marketing budget, as well as it'll just mean it's making a lot more yield, right? Which is better to kickstart with. And the second part is we need to be at least close or, you know, expecting an alt season. Right now, we haven't seen Bitcoin's top yet, as proven today with a new all-time high. Until we do, and until we see dominance drop, and then ETH and the others pick up, and then as a byproduct, it keeps stripping down. You know, what's the point of launching if we know in a couple of weeks, if, you know, ETH withdraws again to $2,000? Okay, well, now all the alts are down 75% again, and we're just going to keep, you know, bouncing down, and everything we do to try to bring it up, we're going to go back down. So we might as well wait till we have an alt season, even if it's a short one this year, like a lot of people think, you know, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever it is. That's a really strong period out the gate for us to get out there. And because we're having a pre-sale as well, it's much harder to do a pre-sale in a bear market because people are not spending as much. If people are making money left and right, you know, on all kinds of tokens that just 5x for them, 10x, they're a lot more willing to take risks and spend it on a new token or a pre-sale. So,
and forget about it for a while too. I mean, how many NFTs have people bought during the 2021 bull run and then just like come back 3 years later and like, oh yeah, I bought this. Completely forgot about it.
You know what's funny is I was talking to the organizer for ClankerCon, which we're going to be a part of on Base. Ooh. It's a metaverse event, and we've already, you know, we've secured a sponsorship, and we're doing stuff with it. And it was supposed to be the end of this month. They delayed for a few reasons from the Base and Coinbase team, and they're reworking a few things and such. But it's now going to be in July, which potentially might be, if things, you know, improve a little bit further here and sustain, we might be able to launch, let's say, the first week of July and coordinate some really cool stuff with them. But what's funny is I was talking to the CEO organizer of it, and once he asked about my background and we got into some of the other projects, he actually owns multiple whelps that he bought from our mint. So It's always cool finding people who have some of our old NFTs and you know, how they originally had found it and got into it. And yes, they've all completely forgotten they have them until they kind of hear it again, and
they're like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. And he was very happy when I told him there's a, you know, a small Monstro allocation for them, and I gave him the checker tool, and so
you know, on that, I feel like sometimes people don't understand how that stuff works, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. It happens.
Well, the thing that surprises a few people this has happened with is they're amazed that, like, you know, 95% of the NFT projects from 2021, it didn't just drop. Mr. Hans, hello. Hans is a friend of mine from the land of Oz. So, yeah, people are surprised we didn't just drop it as well, right? And we're still trying to give them a little bit of value. And even if the original plans never continue, they're still part of Monstro now. So they're, especially if these are people we're going to work with for marketing or for other purposes, it's a good sign to them that we didn't abandon anything.
Okay. That's an interesting point. So I think we'll just give a little insight on that. So you've done multiple projects up to date, right? I think from the top of my head, it's Whelps, Heroes and Villains, Master Brews, and then you took over Lazarus Pit. So, in taking all of that, you kind of continued the spirit of those projects in essence, and now you have Monstro. How would you say, it's like, how have you found the motivation to continue building onto things like that when it's basically been dead for a while? Especially since I've seen the Master Brews, the Whelps people often, but it's kind of like it's been so long that people kind of assume it's dead. So, like,
Mhm.
how do you have the motivation in essence to continue going with that? Just to drive home back to longevity. It's like you're keeping these things, these IPs alive through Monstro, and keeping Monstro alive at the same time, essentially. So, how do you suppose find the motivation to do that? Is that just pure stubbornness, or is it that you see the vision for these things and you want to just bring it along anyway?
Yeah, for those, there's always so much potential with them. So many plans we didn't get to do because of the bear market and lacking funding. And there's still viable plans. There's still things that people either haven't tried, or some of them are just big term ideas that we know we can do. We know we can do successfully. It's just a matter of money and timing. And Monstro is a vehicle to obtain the money. And then the timing obviously is out of our control. But we've thought of so many different things. And the other part is not to leave these people hanging. These people supported our ideas, right? We understand everyone knew the risks where, okay, they're buying an NFT, the project has a lot of promises, maybe they deliver, most of them don't. It's no different than any tech startup, right? If you buy, let's say you buy shares in their IPO, you're hoping they're going to release something that's going to do XYZ. Maybe they do, maybe it fails, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it was, they really tried their best and it just didn't make it or didn't have a product fit. A lot of things can happen. So I think most people understand those risks, and that's why no one's too angry. But we don't like that the people, we don't like that we didn't get to the point of failing. We got to the point of we just don't have money, and no matter what we do, we couldn't raise money. So it's like the ideas have not been tested and failed yet. That's, I think, what keeps them alive.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's kind of like they potentially still there. You just haven't been able to actually tap into it yet. Hence, there's no
Yeah.
point killing it off. It's more
And now
like,
that we have
okay,
so much more experience and from a different side of the space, like we were never in DeFi back then. We were in NFTs, then a little bit of gaming. Now that we have a massive amount of more experience from the past 2 years, there's so much we would do different from zero. But since we can't do it from zero, we can still, if we get to the point, do like a reborn narrative and even refocus some of the things that were a little bit too ambitious. Maybe like doing 2 AAA games at once and with 2 different studios and things like this. We can absolutely start a little smaller, build traction up, build a bigger team up, and do those things properly. At the time, we were stretching ourselves between that and about 40 clients as well, writing smart contracts and trying to help them with things and marketing and whatnot. So, yeah, we learned our lesson. Keep one focus. Don't do 500 things at once, like a lot of it's very, very easy to be a serial entrepreneur in the crypto space because every day you have a new idea. And, I'm a good example. I have a whole list of, 1,000 things I think could be viable projects on their own. And it's very hard to not want to start one of them, especially when anything is slow. But I have to remember, no, we need to keep building on just one thing, and that's Monstro right now and everything that's under it, and not just keep trying ideas and ideas and ideas, or the other ones get abandoned. There's no way to avoid it. So
makes sense. I like how you already answered a question I was going to ask anyway. It's like, like, what would you be? How would you do things if you had to start over again, knowing what you know now? Like, and you already answered that. It's like, okay, I guess.
yeah, and number one mistake we made was for the games, specifically for those projects, way too high a burn rate because we were so confident we had sold the projects outright. We had money, everything was booming. We had novelty and innovation other people didn't have. And back then also games were not games, right? These people were putting little tiny DeFi things or like games you would, play on a 1990s arcade machine or something and calling these amazing games they spent $10 million on, which is
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
not the case. So in our case, no, we wanted to build real, high quality games you would play on PlayStation and whatnot and proper titles. But, spending 50 grand a month on each is a burn rate. And then the bear market hits. And then the biggest mistake was VCs were giving money out like candy to nothing at the time. We decided, no, we're going to go as far as we can, push it on our own, self-funded, crowd-funded, then release all these expansions, right? Wealth and Heroes and Villains, we had massive plans for. We have the art done on some of them that's unreleased. We have mechanics that are unreleased. We have stuff done, and the market just made it impossible to do it. We would have wasted our time and effort. And yeah, all those were, too ambitious, some of them were bad assumptions. And the fact that VCs stopped giving money out like candy and it became absolutely, I think they dropped 98% of funding for blockchain gaming at the time. And it all became down to the same 5 people who would lead around. And these people only deal with people they know. And if you don't know them, you're not getting their money. So it's very simple.
Damn, that does sound quite intense. Yeah, probably would have been better to just go the VC route to begin with.
When we had sold out Wealth, if we had accepted or looked for VC money, I'm pretty sure we would have found it very easily at that moment, because we had just sold out for a $1.5 million collection with a cool mechanic, with a couple of influencers who picked it up organically and were pretty big names at the time. So I'm pretty sure we could have got, let's say, a couple million in funding with like nothing. But unfortunately, we thought, it's better to go to them when we have like a playable demo and we're further along, we have our expansions out, and then we'd be the ones in control of the negotiations and the terms, right? We don't want them to just infect us with their predatory terms like they do to so many projects, and all those projects now are down 99%, right?
or I've decided to just stop continuing. I think I've seen 2 this week alone that were like, oh yeah, we are ending the game, so that's great. We love and leave you. Bye. We only raised like 20 million. We need like another 30 million to continue building.
Yeah.
That's what we've been seeing this week. So there's that too. Now, Smiley did have an interesting little question here. Passive income is very attractive to traditional investors. What does Monstro offer to those who are unfamiliar to crypto? Do you expect higher yields? Will it be easier to on-ramp? So that's quite a lot of questions on there.
Yeah, I'll answer the on-ramp one.
Let's bring it back.
So the on-ramp one, again, it's something just people are not aware of. We don't market it hard enough. Maybe if you wanted to, you can on-ramp right now and buy crypto in our little wallet widget, right? That's using, Reown App Kit. So if you click on it, yeah, you can absolutely, buy crypto with fiat and do other on-ramp things. It's just not very out there, but we're also not marketing to a non-crypto audience right now, so there's no focus on it. There will be, the same widget. We can add ways where you can use your email address and you can use your social account to log in instead. And all these things are options we can turn on like very quickly. So on-ramping just in general is still not a focus, and not a focus for most people by Serenity, because nobody's reaching these people through marketing, and traditional channels still are anti-crypto, very much so. Whether it's an individual influencer or whether it's an agency or it's a ad network, like we tried many ad networks that refuse to accept us no matter how we spin it. So until that stuff changes, the on-ramping is going to be a problem, because everyone's blocking all these gateways to try to get those people involved. So let me see what's the next part. Okay, so as far as those who are unfamiliar with crypto, we do offer, I think, a very easy path compared to some of our competitors. It also, we hope the Monster, the cute vibe, as much as it does turn off some serious investors, and we know that, it also attracts a lot more of the people who are not so experienced, right? If they see a rather daunting DeFi protocol staking with restaking with XYZ in 400 steps, that's a little daunting to them. Whereas with us, you just buy it like POX. A lot of people are buying POX, although it's a very high risk product. They're buying it because it's an easy $50 USDC, right? The thing is now you don't even have to have gas money, so you don't have to worry about having ETH. Let's say you're coming from an exchange, you just have to have USDC. You don't need to pay gas anymore. We're gasless. You can mint, you can add on, right? You can do all these things. You don't have to worry about the approval step that was always glitchy with people and is never perfect. And so everything we can do to simplify like that, we do. A lot of other people don't. They just leave it as it is and let the user figure it out. But we try to make it simple. And then even the fact you don't have to claim your rewards, it just arrives in your wallet. Some people get confused because they don't still understand it arrives in their wallet magically. And we get tickets and questions, right, still all the time. But or people they haven't been around since we moved to base chain and they expect the money on BNB chain, which I guess it's been like 4 months now we're off of. So it just shows like some people are not too active, right? And those are easy things to answer. Like, hey, you didn't pay me. Hey, here's your payment. It's just on a different chain.
Oh, and you can go check it over here. That's the easy stuff.
Now, as far as higher yields, I mean, there's a conscious choice being made with farms because we had made, farms was always high risk too and high APR. And it paid off in certain periods really well, especially at the beginning. It didn't pay off in other periods and other certain investments. But that's why we're keeping it right now in Alien Base. We have a close relationship with them, right? We have a lot of things coming. We can take that money out and try to produce higher APRs elsewhere, wider variety of pools, like we're doing with our pools product. It's paying its 50% APR. And I think farms this week, it just did 26%. And originally it was trying to target 100%, every week. But the problem is, the impermanent loss, on Alien Base we're single staked for a lower APR. I think it's 24% this week. But there's so much potential there that we're like, look, all that is so easy to catch up. If we have a year of, 15, 20% APR, but then our asset doubles or triples or quadruples, that's 100, 100, 100, right? It adds up very quick. And there's nothing stopping us from doing anything retroactively when we choose or whatever we want to do, right? So I think that it's a conscious decision that we could potentially have slightly higher APRs. Right now, during the bear, volumes are low anyways, and most of the APRs suck. So it's never going to be higher unless you start getting into risky meme coins. And those only last a few days with volume, and then they tank usually. So as far as sustainability, we think anything above like 15, 20% now is really good if you can sustain it long term. The higher amounts are going to happen during the bull market. Assets appreciate, volumes increase, all these different things. But it's the bear. Yeah, you're pretty much screwed because it's stupid. It's something you're staking in, let's say, this pool. Anything you're doing that's not USDC, you're probably going to be losing money for a while. In a impermanent loss or unrealized loss fashion. And it's something we want to find a great solution for as best we can before the next bear market. Once we get alt season, once we get through it and towards the end of it, we don't want to hold all our positions going into the beginning of a new bear because we know it's all going to crash 70, 80% again. It happens every single cycle. And it would be, the definition of insanity to decide, no, I'm just going to ignore it. And I know what's coming and I'm just going to let it happen anyways. So, whether that's for a couple of months switching to stablecoin things and lending and different products, or for example, Alien Base is working on something to hedge with options to combat the effects of the drops that happen during the bear. If we find a great solution like that, that would be ideal. And then try to recoup our positions and re-enter. We'll never time things like the bottom perfectly. But if all the majors crash, 70-ish%, 80-ish%, and then we reestablish positions, we're in a pretty good spot to rise back up, right, with everything. Even if it drops another 10, 20%, that's fine. It's better than dropping 80, 90%, holding it through the whole time. So we're going to have to shift our strategies, be more agile. This is all stuff we learned, obviously, by going through it now. And, yeah, we hope we don't repeat the same mistakes and same type of mistakes. And this time just have a better plan. And we'll also have our own token to deal with how its yield is going to be managed. So just like everything else, I'm sure, volumes will shrink and prices will drop, and it's unavoidable. But we'll be in a position at least where we'll still produce yield, we'll protect the TVL for the bear part. And that's more than a lot of tokens do, and that's why they, drop and don't come back up. So that's kind of our plan, I guess, in a nutshell.
Makes sense. Sounds like a good plan. Yeah, and also a lot of the tough part of being in a bear market. It's just like volume is so low. It's like it's tough to be able to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna produce these kinds of returns. And I think I've looked at a lot of like staking platforms and stuff like that, and I think the highest I saw was liquid staking on Solana, and that's like 16-17%, which is Monstro still higher than that. Monstro still higher than that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at things like right now, we have our smart yield router, right? Which barely anyone is using because everyone I talk to has no idle cash. It's targeting people with idle cash in their wallet, which nobody seems to have right now. But even that, like if you look at the rates on Aave and Morpho and everything that's being aggregated, I'm used to seeing, like I think it was during the last bull, lending rates, if you were supplying USDC or stable coins, they were giving you 15% or up to 18%. Right now it's barely doing 4 or 5%. And that's just because the demand for borrowing is lower. And if you look at the rates that BTC or ETH pay, it's like under 1% for BTC and like 2% for ETH. So everything is extremely low because we're under bear market conditions. So there's not much we can do about those things. What we can do is just try to, knowing what to expect, we can try to work around it and balance. I think that's the word, balance. Still giving people attractive weekly payouts because they want to be paid weekly versus not. Like if people were only wanting to be paid every quarter, it's great. We could compound, for the whole quarter. We can DCA, we can move in and out of things. We can do it a very different way. Or if we only had to pay people, once a year. That would be a very different approach than if we have to pay them every single week and pay them something that attracts them. So that makes it more difficult in a sense than it needs to be. If, for example, if you were someone doing it by yourself and you didn't need to take the money every week, let's say for your expenses or whatnot, I'm sure you would place it very differently and be more patient than if you had to actually use the money every week to pay your bills and your rent and your food, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the situation we're in as a passive income project. We're forced to balance paying people out every week to be competitive, right? To be attractive. We know that long term this would be a better approach, but if we do that approach, people are not getting paid. So
that is also interesting. I know Monstro released we've had the compounding option for a while. Has that kind of improved on that sort of thing? Has it made things better in that regard?
It's still a lot better on pools, and on POCs it's actually really high versus on farms. And I'm going by not by amount, of course, right? Because their TVLs are different, but by percentage of people. And I think the reason is partly, POCs is the hot new product. It's doing phenomenal, and it's also newer though. So everyone that has one is very active, right? They just got in recently. They know about the compounding feature. They can go set it. Pools, to a lesser degree, it's more stable, but also it's more recent people in it. Farms, so much of that TVL are people that barely pay attention, right? They come check every few months or whatever it is. So a lot of them probably still might not even know we have a auto compounding feature. Or part of farms is, since it is the lowest paying one of the three products, maybe people are just like, you know what, it's not worth compounding while it's so low. I want to take those couple of bucks and try to do something with it. So
that's fair. That's half of the time I look at it also, I'm like, should I compound? It's like $1. Should I compound or should I just take it out and keep it for a rainy day?
But it has gone up because it was only about 6 to 8% the first couple of weeks it was introduced. And right now, I think this week's farms one compounded roughly 14%. So
That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe when Monster token comes around, we'll see a little more compounding. That could be
Yeah, but you know
interesting.
what? It's also a lot of the compounders are the smaller guys, whereas the kingdoms and fortresses, I think other than one kingdom, none of them are compounding. They're all at 0% compounding. So percentage-wise, when you look at it, it's very skewed that way. If one kingdom tomorrow sets is to compound 75% or something, that's drastically going to influence the amount that's being compounded, right?
Yeah, that really would. That would be huge, especially if it's Raza. Although he
I,
might
I
even
think
be
I'm
compounding.
pretty sure he is the one compounding right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably part of the things that actually makes a difference.
yeah.
Although I do see another question from Smiley here. So let's see. Smiley says, with your extensive experience, 6 days, 6 days is a long time. Do you mentor any new projects and or founders? What lessons do you think are learned on the fly as opposed to following other successful projects? Oh, that's a great question. I think
So the
that's also
first
another
part,
heavily loaded one.
the first part I'm always kind of open to, and I've tried to be advisor on a couple of projects, right? Our friends at Upfront and Chain Factory, and then which was the one, Limono with Mike.
Yeah.
And I think there's been one or two others along the way. And it's very difficult because often you can be an advisor for only a certain aspect. Like, let's say I'm only their advisor for technical stuff, and then the project fails due to whatever reason, let's say bad marketing or lack of marketing or lack of product fit. Then you get associated with the failure, and I'm like, is it going to hurt Monstro? Is it going to hurt us? People seeing me associated with something like that. So I try to be pretty picky about them. At least the ones I've done, nobody has screwed people over as far as like the person running the project. So I don't mind if the project tried and didn't work out. Like Limono didn't work out, but as far as I know, Mike is still sending payments to these people every week.
From his fault.
Chain Factory obviously hasn't done near what they wanted, but they're still around and looking at how they're going to revamp it or whatnot. And so at least choosing good people, I never feel bad if their stuff doesn't work out. And if someone blames me, I mean, whatever. I have thick skin. I wouldn't want to hurt Monstro, but if it does, well, that person obviously has their own feelings, and that's fine. But yeah, so it's hard to pick people. Obviously, time is another aspect. I want to spend as much of my time as possible on Monstro itself. Anyone on our team that tries to ask me anything, though, or our community members, very happy to always answer them and help them. And if I can point them in some directions, like a lot of our community members have asked, how do I do this, or would you recommend this or this? Like they want to get into learning, let's say, yield farming on their own. And I'm totally fine with helping them and giving them information, because I know there's project founders who'd be like, if you do that, why would they bother using your service anymore? And the fact is, these people are still, if they're intending to learn it and try it on their own, they're still going to do that whether you help them or not. And if you help them, you're getting the appreciation back. And I see a lot of people do it on their own, but still add on to their Monstro products. And the reason is they want to diversify, right? If they do horrible, maybe Monstro will still do well. Different strategies, different things. But also some of them do it, they just want to support people who are helping them or supporting them. So I think there is a gratitude factor, and I think it applies. And I would never tell someone, I'm not going to help you because it'd be my own competition. I think that's a really, really narrow-minded mindset.
That's very anti-competitive.
Yeah. It lacks how would I say? It lacks confidence in your own product, right? If you're afraid of copycats, then you have a shitty product.
Yes, that it definitely does come down to that. I mean, great example is Whelps. Technically, anyone could have just forked that and be like, "Oh, look, we've just created this really awesome mechanism," and never attribute Whelps. But
nobody ever copied it that we know of.
that's
We've had techs that reached out at the time saying, "I looked at the contract and I can't understand how it works. Can you help?"
Whoa.
And we've been offering some of them explanations and help, and we thought their project might do something, and nobody ever did it again. And I would get that if we launched it, and it was cool, but it didn't succeed. But the fact it had a good sellout, it raised, over $1 million, it sold out, and there were no copycats was always a mystery to me.
That is That is
Just
incredible.
strange. But you know what? I've come to learn more often now on almost any time it comes up in convo, people are lazy, and bigger companies with a lot of resources, they're the laziest. They are what you call fat and happy, and
Yeah.
they don't, unless they're absolutely forced to evolve or innovate or change, they won't, right? They will just stick with whatever's working. It's making them plenty of money. They don't care if they can make another, let's say, 3x what they're making now with a little bit of effort. They'd rather just be like, nah, why bother? Why risk it? We're in a good spot. We have a majority share, a monopoly, whatever they might have. And that's in a way good for little guys because you still have then that competitive ability to out innovate and try to grow and capture a little bit of market share based on innovation. Even though we know it's still all marketing driven, at least you have a chance. If all the big guys were innovating and constantly improving, you'd have zero chance.
True. Actually, that's also another interesting point. So, considering, Monstro as it is right now, where the Monstro is, would you say that then if you were to try something new, innovative, would it harm Monstro in the long run, or would it possibly be a catalyst for Monstro going, to the moon, as we say in crypto? Because
Well,
depending on the size of projects, doing something new might not be the best idea because there might be massive backlash, or it could be good.
like right now, if we launched something else and it didn't work out and it failed miserably, I don't think it would hurt Monstro because we're not marketing, we're not really bringing in new people. Our existing people are sunk cost right there, whether they like it or
Yeah.
not. So it would not hurt us. Now, if we had our token, let's say, launched, and that's very much based on any little piece of news or fun, as they say, right? All these things that fly around, it absolutely can. And even if a project is independent, even if it's a success, you're going to get people who are saying, oh, the founders or the team are doing this now, they're going to neglect Monstro and it's going to drop, so I better sell my tokens. So that's why we also don't want to do anything. I have wanted to do so many types of meme coins with cool mechanics, and I always come down to a better not, because if they fail, which is likely, they're going to be associated with me and with Monstro, and that could hurt our future
Image.
plans. So
Yeah.
the same with some other stuff, some games and some other ideas. But eventually, I think it would be cool to kind of shift off and basically have like a Monstro Labs, like development kind of team that can do different ideas and projects under the same, I guess, parent, but not necessarily always tied together or anything. And I think we'd reach a point where that would be able to be separated in arm's length enough where people wouldn't be always associating it, right? Like they'd realize this is completely different. And I think even with our products now, let's say POX didn't work out or doesn't work out in the future. I don't think that affects the people in, let's say, pools, because it's a completely different type of product that doesn't relate to each other whatsoever, right? So if we do badly in options because we picked the wrong direction a couple of times, that has nothing to do with the yield farming of using blue chips for yield farming. So hopefully people will see the separations, and especially if it's a game or something else, then that can bring us to last monster standing. If that didn't work out well, I wouldn't expect it would hurt the rest of our project because it's completely unique and isolated and not related to what we do overall. So
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
yeah, but there will always be people who will just blame, see one thing and blame everything else on it. So
oh yeah. No, we love the negative energy some people give. Okay. I think we can get back to the second question now. What lessons do you think are learned on the fly as opposed to following other successful projects?
Well, I'm on although I study and research and look at tons of tokens and projects and things to try to pick up little pieces, it might sound pretty arrogant, but rarely do I find something useful from others. And I prefer we just try and make, our own mistakes. And the other thing is, like, unless you know someone really, really, really well and really trust them, they're going to hide a lot of times their failures, right? They're going to spin things that happened as, there's there's version A, version B, and then there's the truth. And
yeah.
you never get version C. So it's hard to like pick up stuff from others because you don't know the actual stories and events and things that went on behind the scenes to actually learn properly from. But yeah, there's obviously things like we can look at let's say it's I don't know, if I was a DEX and I looked at a different DEX competing with me and said, oh, this feature they do is really cool. This is something that we don't have that I think we should adapt or take it and improve on it. That would be ideal. So there is stuff you can do like that. With what we do, we don't see a lot of it because a lot of the competitors, as far as yield farming, we're all using the same few platforms, right? We're not developing the platforms, so to speak. We're not a DEX. We're not doing that type of work. So yeah, I mean, most of them are also not transparent. So I can't say if I look at, XYZ fund and their yield farming and their results are amazing this week, if they're not sharing their wallet and they're not sharing any info, there's nothing for me to learn from them other than maybe they're making that, maybe they're a Ponzi, maybe they're, who knows? So yeah, I don't think there's enough, transparency, and the whole spirit of Web3 is supposed to be everything is out there, right? So people can all build new stuff and all keep progressing, but that's not reality. That's not how most projects operate.
True indeed. They like a lot of projects, especially the team, like to keep their methods, how shall I say, secret, I guess, in essence, private. Oh, that leads me to another question that I have also. How do you manage expectations? Whether that's for the team or for internal and for external investors and community. Like, from your experience, what's the best way to go about managing those expectations?
Well, we try now to, I know, some on the team hate the fact that I try to downplay our products, and it's like I'm almost trying to not sell them. And Pox is the perfect example of that. After degens, we realized how many people don't read, don't pay attention, throw their money at stuff and get mad, right? Or lose their money. And we really try to make things clear. But given that, majority of people don't read, don't pay attention and just follow the herd sometimes. There's being right now, Pox, it's been 11 weeks, I think. The lowest APR is like 180%. The highest was like 800%. That's attractive, right? That pops out, especially from a project now that it's almost 2 years where we've been paying out every week, not on that product, but just overall. So people are seeing that and being like, I want to put all my money in that, forget farms, forget pools and whatever. And I'll go back to those later if Pox dies out. But I really try to answer them all the time and remind them how high risk it is and it could change at any moment. And just one bad streak, right, could hurt it. And the more I do that, the more people are still just buying it. So I don't know if it works, but the team is like, you're almost anti-selling, right? You're discouraging sales on it. And I'm like, no, I really want people not to lose their money. If you lose your money, it's fine. If you know what you're buying, right? What you're investing in. Like if I go to the casino and I lose my money, that's fine. I know what I was spending for entertainment, right? I knew what I was risking, and I know the chances are I'm not walking away winning.
No crime in the casino. Yeah.
Yeah. So in these cases, we don't want people to feel misled, even if it's their own fault, which it is the majority of the time, right? So we're trying to save them from themselves a little bit, or I am. But yeah, don't worry. With the token, I won't be that discouraging. I want people to buy our token because I believe it's sustainable and appreciating. So
you're going to be like, it is high risk, high reward, and that's all that matters. And then
yeah. Well, AI told me not to use high risk, high reward in our text.
Oh, okay. So it's just supposed to be like high reward.
Yes.
Sounds
speculative play. And we are not. What is it? We have to put a little disclaimer, like we are not responsible for market conditions.
Yes. To the weird thing. Oh, I like what Smiley says. Yeah. I wonder how many projects are using AI now for coding advice.
I feel like I use AI to do all my coding, and I'm at the point where I simply review its work, show it all its errors, which it still makes a lot of, and fixes things up. But I would say 80% of the code that I write now for anything is all AI driven. And it's just about, I still have to spend many hours with it because I know it gets stuff wrong. I cannot just trust its code. We're not at that point yet. We will be one day, I'm sure. But for now, yeah, it saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of the grunt work, I will call it. And I really just have to focus on testing and from a review point of, is this what we should be doing? Can we do this better? Are we missing a feature? Are we missing a function? More of that stuff versus the actual coding. So
it's like semi-vibe coding, in other words.
yeah, unfortunately, the one I liked using that was doing a good job, the management team just completely screwed it up. So they first of all, they got rid of their Discord server, pissed everyone off for no reason. Then they decided they were going to change the pricing model completely. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of outrage, a lot of canceled subscriptions. Yeah. But along with the update to do that, they also released what seems like an update that caused their AI to be like 20% of what it was. So it's no longer useful or better than the competition. So I'm sad because I like that tool, but rest in peace V0, I guess. Unless they roll it back, maybe they will, because there's a lot of outrage on their forums. If they roll it back, I will happily keep using it. If they don't, then time to move on.
Oh, that's a whole different kind of question there. That's a whole different tangent. But I actually use Google's Gemini quite often. I found Gemini to be quite good. It has its problems, I'm not going to lie, but I've enjoyed its responses so far, especially because it's generally always doing the deep research thing, which I like.
Funny, this has nothing to do with any of our topic, but Grok this morning, sometimes I ask Grok just simple things quick when it's not super coding related. And I asked it something, and I feel like it leaked its own internal information to me because I got a message where it was informing itself it should not reveal the fact that it has access to version 3.5 and this and this. And it was mentioning its pricing and APIs from X API. And it goes, do not share this with the user, simply direct them to this URL. And I'm like, so it's kind of leaking its internal information to me.
I actually saw someone share something like that too not too long ago. So it looks like someone broke something with a Grok backend.
I'm not the only one that can't, spill the beans sometimes. Apparently Grok wanted to let this out. But yeah, I would say for the topic of surviving, it's just about not giving up. But the other part is, the biggest thing I learned is you have to lower your burn rate drastically. And that's the same of any startup, doesn't have to be in crypto. But majority of projects that fail, what I see is the owners and the team are taking high salaries when their project's not producing revenue. That obviously is not sustainable. A lot of them, if they do have VC money and whatnot, they burn through it very quickly on inefficient ad spends, right? They just throw a massively large net out. They don't really focus on quality. And number two is a lot of them burn it up doing buybacks where it's a limited pool of money. Again, they're not making revenue. If you're doing buybacks from ongoing revenue and it's a small percentage of it, that's fine. That's sustainable. If you're burning your treasury up trying to support your token for as long as the bear lasts with no revenue coming in, that is not sustainable. Maybe you get lucky and you have enough to barely last till the bull, but most likely you're going to run out before the market does. And that's what we see with a lot of projects, and that's where they put themselves in trouble. So they're spending money they're not making. That's the number one mistake. You can do that, obviously, if you're building a game and you receive whatever, $10 million in VC funding, and you budget it like, okay, our burn rate's going to be X per month. We have 36 months of runway to get the game out, and do our sale. Like, these are normal things normal companies do. But in crypto, it's more like, the bull will be here in 3 months. We can blow all the money till then, and then we'll just raise more or do more. And that was a mistake we thought too. We thought, the bull market would have been here long before now. And no, so we keep things tight. Like, I don't mind to share. People might laugh. Some people do laugh when I tell them. But for all of Monstro to operate, all our fixed expenses per month is about $400.
That is impressive. That
Yeah.
is
Now,
very
part
impressive.
of that
Whoa.
is none of the team takes a salary. None of the mods have a salary. There's no staffing costs other than on demand, our front end web dev, right, and design. Those are two things we pay for on demand. We don't have full time salaries being paid to them. We do have an advantage where a lot of, let's say, the smart contract work or some site work, script work, I'll do it myself, which I don't pay myself for. So that, saves money. And yeah, so, this whole bear market, even though when we were making only 2-3 grand a month, sometimes when results were really low, now it's starting to come back up, which is nice. But with 2-3 grand a month, we can afford $400 or $500 a month and still be plenty fine. It doesn't leave us budget, for marketing and things like that. And we always want to keep a buffer there for opportunity pops up. Like, let's say ClankerCon, the sponsorship came up. They wanted to cut us a really good deal, so we jumped on it. It didn't cost a lot, but we had that little buffer there to do things like this. So yeah, I would say, number one mistake people do is having a burn rate much more than they can support. Whatever they're spending it on, if they're not making that money in, then they're on a limited time, and it's a race. It's you versus the bear market, and the bear market's been winning. So,
Hi, Smiley.
bye, Smiley. Thanks for all the questions.
Thank you for joining. Had some really cool questions. Okay, now I suppose we'll end off here because I think we're a little over time already. But
yeah,
just to be sure, when you say burn rate, what does that kind of entail? Does that entail like the money spent only, or does that entail like money spent, manpower? So like, you do all the coding in essence. So does that like also be part of the burn rate, or is it just like, okay, it's just the money side, or is it just the...
Yeah, so when I say burn rate, it's just what you're spending per month. It could be on anything. Like I said, some people it's on buybacks, some people it's on salaries, some people it's obviously a mix of a bunch of things. But it's just, it's basic economics. If you're spending more than you make, and a lot of projects make zero or next to zero, right? Especially in the bear market, especially while you're building for the future and such. Yeah, if you're overspending, you're going to run out, and then your project's screwed unless you're capable of, on demand raising more money, which I would say is a very few select individuals. It's certainly not me and not anyone I know. So if you get yourself into that situation, there's not a lot of ways out of it. And especially if you've already launched, right, your token or your project, and you've had your one-time sale, let's say, it's not like you can suddenly, maybe you have a treasury and you're going to dump tokens on yourself. That's not very helpful. And that's, again, a limited option. You can't do that forever. So I think some people need to decide if, like there are some project founders who say, well, if I'm not going to pay myself a salary, like at all times, I'm not going to do it. So, okay, if that's your decision, don't do the project. Like,
True. Because sometimes you got to take that back pedal and be like,
yeah,
okay,
you got to have some sacrifices. And I can tell you it's sometimes very hard sacrifices, and you got to make tough choices. And it depends what you want more. Like, I still think our project will massively succeed. So I don't mind being, at the edge of debt some months and high stress limit and things like that. And just, I'm confident that I'm still going to be rich and successful from this project. And it's just a matter of time. So that is a pretty easy motivator if you really believe, your conviction in things.
Sounds fair.
And
Sounds
I think
fair.
Jose needs to go outside. So I think he's telling me it's time to get off.
Okay. Well, if you have any closing remarks, you have the floor, and then we can...
Yeah, I feel like, to drop some alpha on alpha's alpha, but I will say this without revealing anything. We have one pretty big change to our tokenomics that we've had up in the wiki and whatnot that we have to update for the Monstro token. And I think it's a change that every single monster will really like. And I'll leave it at that.
If you missed it, tokenomics. Tokenomics change.
Yeah,
okay.
But it's a significant change. For the positive, we see only upside and zero downside. So we'll see once we inform people what they think of it. But it's it should be our final, set in stone changes. And like some people saw in Monstro, we're working on now the contracts for the launch, meaning the vesting contract and some of the other stuff needed, the sale contract and whatnot. So we're absolutely getting closer, but it's still a matter of, how much longer until alt season, we don't know.
True. Hey,
And we
here's
waited this
another
long.
perk.
We will not bend to anybody's peer pressure. No matter how many times you tell us we're stupid and we should launch now, we are going to agree to disagree and stick to our timeline. And trust me, we want it out. We are excited for it for a long time. We want the bear part to be over. We want alt season to be here. But yeah, we're not going to waste our shot for no reason. So
Gotta be a little stubborn.
Yeah.
Hard-headed. Just a
Yeah.
little
And
bit.
usually the only people really complaining like that are, some old people from Lazarus Pit with, it's obviously for them been a really long time and they haven't seen a cent. So we understand, but at the same time, we still think this is their best shot. So we're not going to waste it. And
True. That's fair. That's good information. Oh, and that's also another perk of having not released yet. You still have that room to make adjustments to the tokenomics. I mean, damn, if
yeah,
it was released
we
months
debated
ago.
this change. There's just too much upside to it, we feel, for everyone. Otherwise, we really did want them to be set in stone since, November, I think, was the last time we changed it when we had the AMA and put up those slides. We haven't changed it from that. There was this one major change we were thinking about for quite a while, and we decided, yes, it is very beneficial. We prefer to do the change. Everyone we talk to loves it, so we think this will help. And I leave you with that. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Okay. Just keep your secrets. It's fine. Keep your secrets.
Yes. Everyone will be proud. I'm not telling you guys.
That's generally very rare. Now, on that note, thank you, Various, for dropping all your experiences and sharing your insights into the world of crypto and what it's like to keep a project going for so long, or even pivoting when necessary and doing something new. And it has been a very, very interesting conversation. And I think a lot of the people that have watched this or watching this or will watch this are going to find it very interesting too. On that note, if you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to my channel and drop a comment, whether it's dissing Various for being like, oh yeah, no, you should have launched already, or praising him and be like, yes, please wait. We need that
my
boy like
DMs
that.
are always open. You can slide right in.
But yeah, thank you for joining and goodbye. Get this video
Good
part.
riddance.